I want to talk to you about toxic masculinity. There are a lot of different forms of it. People think about the brute force that some men exert on women in terms of violence to those women. Of course, that's toxic masculinity. The brute force and violence that men subject other men to is toxic masculinity. The vulgarity that men engage in locker rooms and bars and so forth. This is towards women, right? Disrespectfully talking about women's body parts and what they want to do, etc., etc. That's toxic masculinity as well. But here's another form of toxic masculinity that is really masquerading and parading itself around as some form of feminism. I mean, it's even hard for me to mouth those words, because when you have men dressed up as women, okay, men who say that they are women on the inside, dressing up in skirts and dresses, calling themselves women, entering into women's private spaces, locker rooms, bathrooms, and sometimes attacking those women. This is another form of toxic masculinity that is amazingly insidious. I mean, some of these fellas out here that call themselves women now want to beat up women in MMA fights. They want to race them on the track. They want to run over them on the soccer pitch, handball games, etc., etc. I mean, this has really gotten to a level of absurdity. I think we took it too lightly at first, and now we're seeing the consequences of taking that too lightly. Really, we have to put a stop to it. The Olympics are actually allowing a man calling himself a woman, a man suffering from gender dysphoria, to run against women in the Olympics. I don't know what distance it is, but you know, when you allow gender dysphoria, which is a mental illness, to control people's thoughts, it's a very sad day. And these are men. These are men insisting that other men in dresses be allowed into women's private spaces. I mean, you talk about toxic masculinity to the max. I mean, these men who are in control of schools, the Olympics, etc., etc., have a lot of power, and for them to exert it in this way is no less than conspiring with some rapists. They're helping rapists. They're helping men abuse and take advantage of women, and it really needs to stop. I think most people understand that if you're born with male parts, you're a man. If you're born with woman parts, you're a woman. It's really that simple. The only objective evidence that we have is your physical body. We cannot substitute your feelings or thoughts about who you're supposed to be for the physical reality. That would be absurd. That's not scientific. I mean, you bring to me some evidence that you're a man or evidence that you're a woman. That's in your physical person. That's not in your reflection of your mind. If you think that you're a woman but you have male parts, you have gender dysphoria. That's a mental illness. And to indulge this mental illness is very sad to do these people. I mean, some of these men are out here cutting off their privates. Women are binding themselves up, cutting off stuff. It's a Frankenstein. Once again, these doctors really should be ashamed and disbarred. I mean, they should be not disbarred. That's for lawyers, but take their medical license if they do something like that, especially to a child. You need to be put in prison for the rest of your life. You do that to a child. God help them. You know, I mean, yeah. So anyway, toxic masculinity is manifested in this sort of what they ever call a trans movement or whatever you want to call it. It's just cross-dressing is all it is. You shouldn't really even call it trans. No, you can't change your sex. You were born with male parts, so you're going to be a man. I don't care if you cut it off or not. If you were born with woman parts, you're a woman. It doesn't matter what kind of surgery you do. You still have those chromosomes the way they are, and that's just how it is. You have to figure out how to be the kind of man or woman that you want to be. I mean, you have to look for different kind of role models sometimes when you're a young person and you're understanding who you are gender-wise. It's good to have some role models, some people that you look to, but sometimes you have to be your own role model. You have to be your own. I mean, we all have to be our own. I have to figure out what kind of man I want to be, what kind of woman I want to be. That's an individual pursuit that happens, when people go through puberty. I think when you really have to address it. I mean, it happens a little earlier sometimes in some respects, right? You have some kids out here, but they're so young to indulge their confusion is pretty much criminal. But as we get older, we have to sort of come to grips with who we are as men or women and figure out what style of man or what style of woman to be. It's a very interesting process. It's a wonderful process. And